Man, we're just gonna have to wing this. You ready?
I'm ready. Winging's good.
All right, Patrick. So you and I just sat down to record, and no one told you what this was about. For everyone listening, we have some other people helping us, and I got an email. Oh, Patrick wants to come on and talk about his company, Always Art. And I'm like, great, awesome. And then we sit down, and you think we're just recording an episode about another tip, but we're actually talking about your company. How are you? Surprise. Welcome back to Clean Break, a podcast dealing with art and business. I'm your host, Matt Gondek. Today's guest is my sometimes co-host, Patrick Colson. We'll be talking about his company, AlwaysArt. AlwaysArt partnered with my podcast early last year because we both had the same goals of helping the art world. His website and software not only provide trackable certificates of authenticity for artists' work, but a fleet of other useful data that can be used to sell more artwork, price artwork accordingly, and find new opportunities.
I'm doing good. Yes. Surprise is good. Well, if I can't talk about the company cold, there's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, we haven't recorded together since like October. It's kind of weird. Cool. So everyone listening, this is an episode about AlwaysArt. So cool. So Patrick, maybe we to start this off, just a real quick rundown of what AlwaysArt is and the tools they build and how it helps the Clean Break audience. We can start there. I think that would be a good place to start.
Sure. So the tools, right now, the tools are very light, high level. So it powers artist COAs and
certificates of authenticity.
Yes, the certificates of authenticity. And it also, through those, it builds a very in-depth collector profile. And it also helps you standardize your process across all the galleries because your COAs will be consistent across the galleries. Your certificate vouchers, which are the things the gallery gives the collector, is standard. So all the data you get back is clean.
Well, I thought maybe another way something early on we should talk about is how, maybe your background. Like everyone who listens to this knows my background. I'm a painter, I'm an artist. I've been doing the podcast trying to help everybody. And the reason why you and I became friends, started talking, is because you want to help everybody. But you obviously didn't come in as a painter. You have a different background. So why don't we maybe start talking a little bit about, your background and how we got to this point right here?
Sure. Well, my background's in the art world's simple. So I've done 4 software startups. 3 of them were like real big, legit ones that I sold. And after my last one, I basically was burnt on building companies that I felt like were burning the earth. So I told my wife I was never going to do another software company. I started a cabinet shop and I really started focusing on my art collecting because I'd always been doing it. But since I had time, I had money, I went deep into the art collecting. And as I was doing the collecting, I started listening to a lot of podcasts. Clean Break was one of them. And I went kind of down a rabbit hole, which is kind of strange as a collector. Why am I listening to Clean Break, right? So I noticed pretty quickly that the podcast, after maybe the first 25 episodes, the stories were getting repetitive. And that's not in a negative, that's in a positive, meaning that there was a serious problem out there with artists trying to figure out the industry. And there was a recurring theme of the frustrations. And I kind of got a little bit of it in the gallery stuff. And then me as a collector, I was having a massive problem trying to track my collection. And one day I was in a forum and I made a joke. And I think it was less than 5 seconds after I made the joke, I'm like, fuck, this is the answer. And the
What
next
was the
day, it was something about somebody just needs to create like this central record that just passes around. Because, galleries, the world shifted around them as the world's become more open. Artists, every gallery they work with has a different process. And as the world's evolved, the artist is kind of isolated from their artwork and their collectors, meaning that once you put it out in the world, it disappears. So unless you're real
Yeah.
organized, which most artists don't do till it's too
We're
late,
not. We're
right?
not.
Yeah, it's gone. And then lots of the problem normally it falls onto the state when you die and there's all these paintings left over and drawings and whatever. Your state's trying to figure out what to do with it. So it's almost an afterthought. And then me as a collector, it's like, how do I track my collection? How do I value it? How do I insure it? How do I know where it's stored? Um, I've got 250 paintings, so and sculptures and drawings and all sorts of stuff. So basically, the joke was, somebody just needs to build a centralized record that powers everybody. And if that record existed, you could build contextual workflow for each user, but it all be tightly integrated.
I just think it's interesting the analogy that you use sometimes is kind of like there was a need for a passport for the art world, where it's the only thing that every country can agree on. We all have different politics and money and everything, but we all can agree on this little book that everyone carries around with your country on it that is accepted clear across the board. And that was kind of what the art world needs.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that and I don't know why the passport popped in my head, other than right, it's got a visual representation, it has all the information about you, and it tracks where you've been. Right, that's literally what the art world needs for provenance and artwork, and it'd solve
Totally.
all those issues that you had with like the Warhol forgeries, the basket forgeries, Jackson Pollock's. If something like that existed, literally all the problems go away. And then if you
Yeah.
extend that, if you've got this record and you layer in all the other stuff that each individual needs, it really could be very powerful. So for you as an artist, right, it could power like your workflow, all the shows, all the collectors that have it, um, the prices. For a gallery, they would use it for a totally different purpose, which is probably the sales history, the interest lists, the pre-show catalogs. And me as a collector, I would want to track, the current value, the insurance, all the stuff I was talking about before. So that's the reason why
Yeah.
I thought of it as partially a passport, partially kind of like this container that holds everything.
Yeah. So you've been building this for about what, 2.5 years now? Is that fair?
Yeah, no, it's definitely 2.5. So it's 2.5. The first, well, shit, until now, it's been in stealth mode, right? So we
Yeah.
had a select set of artists on it, like yourself, Bindak, Dolk, quite a few artists. I think there's 50 artists that were on it, and we were basically building the foundation, building the infrastructure, testing it, getting a lot of feedback from you because one of the things that I found interesting is that every artist has a different process. Some of them are
Yeah.
very organized, some of them are very unorganized, some of them, work independently, some work with galleries. The way they send me info is different. So I wanted our team to do everything ourselves so that we could understand the different ways the artists work so we could build a very flexible tool that fits your workflow, not my workflow, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. And if for everyone listening, guys, this isn't just like we're just talking about this. Like all these tools, the website's going to be available. It's for free for everyone listening. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but we're not just talking about this. Like anything you hear that kind of jumps out at you that you want to implement, you can right now. It's going to be here. But maybe Patrick, let me just ask you questions that we can just kind of have short answers to, because maybe that'll help people listening wrap their head around this. Because, like, I'll be honest, from my side, being not a data driven person, being not the most organized, like, as a lot of artists, I did find it a little difficult to find understand the value of what this was. It took me a minute, so I'm trying to like basically dumb it down for people listening. Not that anyone's dumb, but you said earlier, you kept listening to the podcast, you kept listening to these artists, and you kept hearing the same problem. So what are some of the problems that you kept hearing that this fixes? Like, just,
Uh,
I know you mentioned some already, but just like kind of just a short list.
Shoot, there's there's so many, it's not a short list, it's a massive list, but some of them are statement of understanding. So when you work with a gallery, a lot of people were so excited about the show that a month, 2 months, 6 months in the relationship, they're like, what about, when do I get the work back? When do I get paid? Um, who pays for shipping there? Who pays for shipping back? And there were a lot of artists that went into it naive and just thought it was great that they had a show and they were going to be successful. And they forget that the gallery does this all the time. And so to a gallery, it's a given. For the artist, it's new. And how do you structure the relationship so that it's fair and it changes, the relationship changes as you kind of grow in your career. That's one example.
Yeah,
Another
and
example is,
sorry to interject here real quick. Sorry, everyone listening. We actually did a whole episode about statement of understanding. I think it came out sometime last year. Just go back a couple episodes. This whole episode about what we're talking about, and that's also free on the Clean Break website right now. You can find the statement of understanding. It's basically a checklist to ask the gallery, the dealer, whoever you're working with. When do I, like Patrick said, when do I get it back? When do I get paid? All that stuff. It's and that way you can ask the gallery. But we talked about it before. Sorry, continue.
yeah, no. Another example is pricing your work, right? So, a pricing calculator,
Big one.
price your stuff.
Yeah, it's a big
Um,
one.
to me, the biggest one is understanding your collectors. So, right now, well, you had this problem, right? When you worked with galleries, is you'd give the gallery the work. Sometimes they do a COA, sometimes they wouldn't. But as soon as they sell the work, um, they isolated you from your collector, and that kind of
Absolutely.
fractured your relationship. This system makes it so that you guys are a team and you both share that collector data. And it's not that most artists are going to go out and directly sell and compete, right? Artists don't want to be a business, but they want to know that it's fair, it's teamwork, and you really want to know that everything's on the up and up, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
so that's another piece. Um, a planning calendar. So how do you plan your workload? So how do you budget in, like if you got endorsement deals, how do you do things for charity? How do you do commissions? If you have a show that has 12 pieces, how do you organize what the size of the pieces are? Um, how do you break it? Like, do you think in terms of size? Do you think in terms of sketch? Do you think in terms of um, title? Like you just know kind of what you want to do. This lets you organize it in different ways and do that. That that's just a few examples. I mean, literally, we probably have 3 to 4 years of development to go before it's the complete set, and it'll just
Yeah.
continue evolving. Right now,
Yeah.
like I said,
Absolutely.
it's pretty light right now, right? It's COAs, it's collector data, and it's the management system of all of your works, which is the core.
It's actually, I mean, you say it's light, but just, I mean, it's actually already pretty useful. I've also been kind of pitching it to people as kind of like, you probably don't agree with this at all, but it feels like a mailing list on steroids. And what I mean by that is like, like I have a web store, so I have everyone's emails, and but that's basically it. I can see where they live. This does that. It's a collector database. You can see what they own, but you can also see who else they own, who they collect. Um, that way, let's say we've had my friend Fedia. He's been on here a couple times. I can go on and be like, oh shit, I have like 30 collectors that own a piece of my work and a piece of Fedia's. I should call Fedia and see if he wants to do a collaboration piece. We can probably sell to him. Like there's all this
Yeah.
other stuff that is being missed by people like me, an artist, because I don't have access to these things. Where your website and the software, it does that for you, which is incredible.
Everybody's missing that. It's funny that you say that. I don't disagree with that at all. I fully agree with that.
Oh, cool.
And the reason I do is our next two features are your subscriber list and then a VIP list. And the reason those two
Mhm.
things are important is, take you as an example. You do a print drop and it sells out in a minute, literally a minute. So imagine if we also manage the subscriber list. The subscriber list has a couple things because, like you said, it's on steroids. It knows how long they've been on your list. It knows how many works they've bought from you, whether it's editions and originals, and it knows how many times they tried to buy something and they missed out. So now the subscriber list could take all of that data, create an algorithm, almost like, let's say, a draft, and based on how loyal they are to you, how long they've been trying, you could send out a pre-list of you have access to this, right?
Yeah.
That'd be
Amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
The VIP list is it's like your subscriber list on steroids. What the VIP list is do you want to buy a work? Let's say the person says yes. So you start to ask questions. When are you looking to buy? What's your budget? Why do you collect? What else is in your collection? Right? Kind of vetting things. And then if there is a commission available or work available, it either notifies them or let's say they have active budget. It could notify all the artists that are, let's say me, I've got a wish list. It could notify everybody in the wish list. Hey, I've got 15K right now. Who wants it? Right? But
Yeah, that'd be
I'm being
amazing.
serious. I mean, it sounds funny, but
No, I know. It sounds funny, but
people
it's
don't
you're
do it.
absolutely right. Yeah.
And it's the scary thing is there's that fucking type of money out there that's dumb,
Yeah.
right? I'll do it this way. I've been wanting to buy a couple artists. I had about 8K, and it just so happened a couple days ago, an artist that wasn't on my list popped up. I'm like, oh, it was called You Run or something like that. It's a Japanese artist, really fun, cartoony, real clean lines, and um, there was one other. So I told the gallery, hey, I got 8K. What can I get for? I ended up getting 3 paintings. And
Amazing.
the day after, an artist, literally, I spent that money. The day after, one of the artists that was on my real wish list pinged me and said, oh, I have time now. And I'm like, fuck, I just spent that money. It's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I'm sure that happens to a lot of people, which is why I want to make this type of system that connects. And everything we're talking about here is equally available to galleries. And if we give this tool to galleries, what it can do is instead of the artist entering all this data, the gallery can share it back to the artist. And now they're working together as a team, almost like what they did, you know, 50 years ago when they were traveling the world discovering. We're just kind of rebalancing what that workload is. Because ultimately, if you think about the gallery's role outside of the promotion and basically vouching that this is real art, the one thing they can do and they should do for an artist is take the heavy lifting off so that you can focus on your art. Right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's that's
That's what your team member does. I make the art, they do everything else. That's what they
and
should do.
that's exactly what this tool is built to do, is to, with that record, make it so they don't have any of that BS busy work. They can be efficient, focusing on the collector relationship, the gallery relationship. All the data is shared, but again, the relationship isn't based on holding that collector data or holding this tight. The relationship's based on you're giving me so much value that I can work really well on my art, and you're keeping the collector so happy that um, that it's a perfect balance. And
Yeah.
the other piece that's crazy about this is once that system exists, a gallery can now shift their focus a little bit in the sense that, let's say you work with 5 different galleries. All 5 galleries have a different process, right?
Yeah.
But with a system like this, all 5 galleries would have the same process. All of your data is coming to you standardized. And now the galleries can work together as a team, not as competition. Because where a gallery has a shared artist, all of you are a team. Because the more they help you, you rise. When I do a show, it helps the interest on all the other galleries. When those galleries do a show, it helps me. So this
Yeah.
system also does that, where all the galleries can work as a team where they have a shared artist. And when they don't, yeah, it's competitive, but no big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. We should do this earlier. Everyone listening. So a couple of these tools, like the statement of understanding, that's available right now on the Clean Break website, cleanbreakpodcast.com. Everything else, Patrick, they're actually on your website. Your website, what is your website address? We're going to put it here on the screen. We're going to put it in like the bio, everything, just so it's there too. But for everyone listening, what's your website?
Yeah, it's just alwaysart.com.
AlwaysArt.com. And you will need a passcode to get access to this. But for the listeners, we're going to do that. And we agreed on the password's here right here on the screen right now. It's going to be in the bio, everything. It's just the letter C and then break. So CBREAK, C break. It's going to be your password to get in and get all these tools. Amazing. We actually, Pat, we did a couple days ago our first kickoff actual party where we did it here in my studio, and a ton of really amazing artists. A lot of past guests came over, and we had we had food and you did a talk. And I think one really interesting thing about that talk was that at the end you open up to questions. And our good friend Louis, he really just started asking some hard questions, and I think you handled them really well. But it was a good question because your website's free. And there's no like fucking bullshit where like it's free now or it's just free. It's like because you just want to help people. And I think that's really cool. So Louis was asking you, okay, great. This is free, but money needs to be made somewhere because this costs money to run. And obviously, Pat, you are going to have access to a ton of data. You're going to have access, if I sign up, you have access to all of my collectors. If some collector signs up, you have access and you have all this data. And he was asking, how are you making money? Are you selling this data? Like, how does your company make money?
Yeah. So it's interesting. So that's the biggest question I get, which is it's too good to be true, right? I get it from everybody. And just because it's free doesn't mean that I'm not a for-profit company. So the way I like to explain it is it's software. It's highly repeatable. So I make my money today off of the physical COA, right? The physical one. But all the collectors get that collection management system. They get a digital COA for free. But enough people buy that COA that it generates a lot of money. And because it's software, I can repeat it. On, let's say, 50 artists, I'm making 100K a year. On 3,000 artists, I'm making 4 million a year. So it's that, repeatability. That's one place. The second place
And
is,
hold on, sorry, let me just trying to wrap up what you just said there. So, for example, guys, everyone listening, I do a print release, right? And everyone that buys my print, the print comes in the mail, and it comes with a voucher for a COA that says, this is your voucher. Go online to register your artwork, and it's free. And if you want, you're done right there. You have this voucher you can hang on to, but your COA is now online. However, you can pay a fee, and we're putting it here on the screen now, a very nice professional looking certificate of authenticity in this really cool envelope, and it's fucking really beautiful. The collector, if you want that, you have to pay for that. And that's how Patrick's company makes his money. I know you said that, Pat, but I just kind of wanted to explain it a little bit better. But sorry, please continue.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that it populates your collection management system too, right? That's part of the reason why that record's so nice. And then if you sell the work, it has a transfer of ownership.
Yeah.
Another place, and this is where Lou is asking questions, is that data. So the data is yours. We never sell data. We don't use people's, data. But what we can do is we can aggregate it, right? And mine that data. So an artist can, since it's your data, you can download it, do whatever you want with it. But let's say you get to your scale where you have a lot of collectors, you have a lot of data. Well, there are things that I can do to help you mine that data better. And
can you give us some examples of like what I would want to mine the data for?
Sure. So let's say I'm perfect example. So you take me as a collector. So you grab me and say, okay, take Patrick. He's got 200 artworks. He's got 5 of my prints. He's got an original. Take Patrick and find every one of my collectors that has 20% overlap with Patrick. Now let's pull Patrick out of the equation. Take all of these people, find the overlap they have. Now, the artists that they have in common, where are those artists successful? What galleries do they work with? Odds are that's the country you should be showing in and the gallery you should be showing at.
Yeah. So it's not such a blind crapshoot for the artist. They can actually use this data to figure out where they should be trying to sell their works. It's going to be much more effective.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just one small example. But again, the way I look at it is this foundation that doesn't exist today and this data set that doesn't exist today is critical to the future of the industry, and it's how every other business operates. So the reason I want to make this whole foundation free forever is, to me, these basic tools that an artist needs to start their career, that they need to manage the relationships with the gallery, and the gallery needs to manage their business, and that a collector needs to, manage their collection. All of those tools are like a basic need, right? Like air, water, shelter, clothing. So if you provide that and you provide it for free, and not like, oh, it's free for 3 months, or it's free, but you can't print, that's not free. It has to be fully free so that there's A, no barriers to entry, and B, it becomes a standard. Because if that standard is there, there's this whole new layer of opportunity in the art world that I created, that's where I would make my money.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, and that's, I think, the part that, where Louis was like, but, I'm not thinking in terms of the now. I'm thinking this business 10 years from now and the power it has. And and giving tools that are so valuable to the artists that they are so much more efficient and they can focus on their art, and all that value can be free. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I really think that in the future, 20% of the industry is using the paid services and 100% is using the free. But that's okay, because there's a lot of artists that are part-time artists, or they just don't hit that next level, but they still need these tools. And it's okay if it's free. It's software. It's easy.
Yeah, agreed. Is there anything else? I mean, I don't want to have this episode be super long. Is there anything else that we need to touch on? I think we did a pretty good job of explaining.
We'll probably do more of these as more functionality comes along anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone listening, so like we said earlier, if you want to check out these tools, alwaysart.com, and then you can use the little password thing. It's CBreak. It's here on the screen again. Or if you don't even want to go that far, you can just go on our website, cleanbreakpodcast.com. Like, the statement of understanding is there, along with a lot of other stuff. Because that was the whole point, Pat. Like, that's kind of how you and I became friends. Like, you went from a collector to a friend because we both wanted to help people. We were doing it in 2 different ways, and now we're together trying to do it. And here we are.
Yeah, I look at it as this is kind of action to all of our conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've been talking about this stuff on the podcast now for a year, and now it's like, here it is. It's on the website now. It's available. So that's pretty cool. Cool, man. Anything else you want to say before we hop off here?
Nope. Other than I gotta get the body back.
Yeah. Well, that's the next thing we're gonna work on is physical fitness. All right, dude. I'll talk to you next time, buddy. See ya.
All right, see ya.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe you have questions or opinions about what we talked about on this episode. Maybe you have your own questions about your art career, or just looking for some advice. Shoot us an email and we'll answer your questions on a future episode. You can email us directly on our website, cleanbreakpodcast.com. And just a reminder that all our past episodes are available there, as well as a ton of free resources, guides, and tips on how to make more money with your art and get more people interested. This podcast is produced by Elijah Walsh, theme song by Ditch David, additional research by Ikram Dadar. I want to thank Patrick, Jason, and the AlwaysArt team. My name is Matt Gondek. I'll crash you next time.